And welcome back to Owl Facts with Jum Jum. Did you know that there are 216 different species of owl? Or at least, there used to be. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled to announce, right here on the millionth episode of Owl Facts with Jum Jum, that we have discovered a new type of owl. Introducing the Owlboy. It's a video game. It's not a new type of owl, it's a video game. And this isn't even a real show, and I'm not even a real person, you're being lied to! Okay, that was really stupid, but who cares? We're talking about Owlboy. It's a 2D adventure game developed and published by D-Pad Studio, more like D-Bag Studio, haha, I'm hilarious, subscribe. I'm gonna go ahead and spoil my opinion before I get into this review, because honestly, when I first saw Owlboy, my initial thoughts were, oh wow, another 2D indie platformer with pixelated graphics, because there aren't a million of those already. But it turns out I was being a big judgy Jason, because Owlboy is fucking great. I was so surprised by just how much I adored this game, and I am not just saying that. Let's talk about the premise real quick. I'm not gonna say much because it's the kind of story that starts out as nothing but very quickly turns into, well, something. You play as the Owlboy called Otis, who's being trained to be a super special big boy by this guy. Otis is tasked to watch over his town of Veli in case any pirates show up, and then, of course, pirates show up and ruin all your shit, and it's all your fault. Good job. And from there, a huge adventure unfolds that includes robot frogs, gorillas, giant snake things, and these guys, who are seriously my favorite video game characters ever now. I'm not kidding, I love these guys so freaking much. One thing I thought was kind of interesting about Otis is that he's actually pretty weak as far as video game protagonists go. It's made very clear in the beginning that Otis is a total screw-up. He breaks pots, he can't fly good, and I think at one point he accidentally assassinated the president of Ecuador. Honest mistake, really. And he can't even really attack. All he has is this sort of spin move that can at most stun someone. But that's where his friends come into play. See, Owlboy has this really clever mechanic where you have to carry around your friends and control them to do stuff like attack enemies, clear paths, and solve puzzles. You start off with your BFF Geddy, who has a pretty simple laser blaster gun, but later on you unlock other friends who can do other stuff. Not only is this a clever mechanic from a gameplay point of view, but it also makes sense for the story. It makes sense that Otis would need his friends to fight for him because he's too weak to fight on his own, and I think that's a really clever way to make you feel attached to these characters. They're not only important to the story, they're important to the gameplay too. And the gameplay is great. You fly around, usually holding on to one of your friends, fight enemies, solve puzzles, sometimes sneak around. It's really fun. This is one of the very few games where when I was playing it, I had a big stupid grin on my face the entire time. Well, except for the sad bits, because that'd be weird. But seriously, there's just so much to love about this game, my personal favourite thing being the attention to detail. Apparently this game was in development for nearly 10 years. Now, I may know nothing about game development, but even I know that's a pretty fucking long time. And it's clear that a lot of love and attention has gone into making this game, and it shows. From the gorgeous pixel art to the surprisingly deep lore, not to mention the characters, both in how they're written and how they're animated. All of the characters you meet have unique and distinct personalities, so much so that I can remember nearly every single NPC I met, and my memory's fucking terrible. I mean, I was introduced to someone the other day and I thought this was the first time I was meeting this person. Turns out he was my dad. And Otis isn't an exception to this either. He is a mute, and not just in the silent protagonist way. The game actually makes a pretty big deal about how he can't say anything, but even he has quite a lot of personality. But his personality isn't portrayed through dialogue, it's portrayed visually. Otis will very often look sad when things are bad, look happy when things are good, look surprised when something surprises him. And you may think that's not really a big deal, but I see it as a pretty smart way to let you relate to a character who can't even speak. Like I said, attention to detail, man. So, here's the bottom line, folks. Owlboy is amazing. I know usually I'm more critical than that, and I haven't really mentioned any bad things about this game, but that's because there really are barely any bad things to mention, and any bad things I could mention are seriously overshadowed by all the good things. I realize that I sound like a fanboy on drugs right now, but I can't help it. I believe this game deserves all the praise it's getting. There have definitely been some great games this year so far, but I genuinely think Owlboy might be my favourite of the year. If you're into indie games, this is a must-own title, and if you're not into indie games, this might just be the game that changes your mind. You still want me to say something negative, don't you? Fine. There's a little bit too much backtracking, sometimes. You happy now, you bastards? I believe that Owlboy has now earned the title of Owl Man. Actually, that doesn't sound quite as good. Owlboy's fine.